What's up, everybody? This is CJ, aka the Lone Wolf, coming to you here from the Wolf's Cave. We are now in December. We are now in championship week, and we have absolutely nobody standing out outside of number one and number two. We have chaos on the rise, and as you see the scythe right behind me, I'm hoping some of that is delivered because this has been an awesome season of college football. I'm having fun. I'm having a great time. I enjoyed myself from start to finish, even if it was a little boring and crappy and kind of a middle for a couple of weeks or so. This was a great season. Nothing is guaranteed. We know for sure 1 through 8 has pretty much guaranteed their spot. Yes, even Oklahoma's included. Even if they're, I guess, on the bubble, they have the best strength of schedule of every other bubble team on that list right now. We're going down to Alabama, Notre Dame, BYU, Miami, Texas, and even Vanderbilt. I'm sorry, Utah. I'm sorry you guys came up short. I felt like you were beating the crap out of literally nearly every team that you faced. Probably until like the last 2 games of the season, but you still pulled it off. You still finished off strong. I would have loved to see you guys in as much as BYU having an opportunity of getting in and seeing what happens with it. But it is what it is. I'm very surprised I chose Oklahoma to be to be in the college football playoff this season, but lo and behold, it worked out because we have a quarterback. I could go into a huge story when Baker Mayfield walked on to Oklahoma, became the quarterback for him, and got us to the 14 college football playoff. So again, John Mateer reminds me a lot of Baker Mayfield, and it just felt like Baker Mayfield 2.0, even though he's not Baker Mayfield, but it was just cool to see him play even through that hand injury. And guess what? Most likely they make it and they get about a month off. So Mateer gets to heal his hand and they'll figure out the rest of this offense as far as the run game and the offensive line, and we'll see where it goes getting into the postseason. But last week was it was pretty interesting. Post Thanksgiving, we saw A&M get beat by Texas, which kind of upsetted me a little bit because A&M had one job and they just couldn't get it done. Technically, they're still the little boys of the stupid Longhorns, but at the end of the day, A&M got the last laugh because Texas is pretty much is it right here? Yes, eliminated. So enjoy that bowl, Texas. Preseason number one didn't work out for you. I'm so happy it didn't happen. So the fact we got into the playoffs with all the crap we went through and you don't even get through. So it's a great day. It's a great day for teams that do not like Texas. So shout outs to everybody else, including Florida, not Florida State. Took care of Alabama, but shout outs to Florida. Shout outs to Florida for botching them. I'm so happy for that one. Shout outs to Mississippi State and Kentucky for making it competitive against them. It's been a very interesting and funny season, man. Yeah. And then going through Georgia took care of Georgia Tech, Ole Miss stomped Mississippi State before Lane Kiffin left the program. I'll talk a little bit more about that later on after Utah escaping the clutches of Kansas, Arizona taking out Arizona State, kicking them out of the top 25 after they made the college football playoff last season. Um, Kind of want to mention Kent State against Northern Illinois. Drew DeShields is one of my favorite QBs. Did not start off well, was 0-7 on his passes, and then after that, went 11 for 15 to finish up with 11 and 22, 207 passing yards with 2 touchdowns, interceptions. Yeah, why is it important? Because I like Drew DeShields. Boise State edging Utah State. Not very happy about that. San Diego State losing in overtime to New Mexico. That was a pretty dramatic game. That was cool to watch. Sucks that both of them didn't get into the conference championship. How the fuck Boise State and UNLV get in? Computers, apparently. Or if anything, they botched the computers just so those two can play against each other for the third straight time. So it is what it is with it. Still, great game though. Saturday's game, Ohio State takes out Michigan. That was pretty cool. Glad to see Ohio State in their 5 game, no, 4 game losing streak. It's been about 5 seasons or so since they last beat Michigan, so it was cool to see that. Pretty interesting stuff happening with the whole thing happening, but yeah, that was nice. Oregon taking out Washington. It was a bit of a close game, but Oregon was the better team. Oklahoma winning a very dramatic and crappy ass football game against LSU. When they needed it most, they took care of it. Peyton Bowen gets the praise, man. He made a big stop with the interception in the end zone that could have won LSU the game in the long run, and then got the big stop on fourth down and pretty much seal it for them. Get into the college football playoff wherever they get the spot. At least they're good enough to get in. Alabama Auburn. Alabama was able to edge it out against Auburn. Anything could have happened with that game. Kind of disappointed Deuce Knight didn't play as much as I thought he would. I thought that would have been his time too, but hey, still, it was a pretty good game. Ashton Daniels still played as well as he possibly could in that rivalry. BYU takes out UCF. They did not play very good from the beginning. It was 14-0 at the start of it, and then after that, they woke up. They took care of business, and yeah, survived through. So now they should be ready for round 2 against Texas Tech. Miami destroys Pitt. Miami's going to be chilling on the bubble. I'll be explaining how they can find their way in with a little, well, not with a little bit of help, a lot of help. Vanderbilt takes care of Tennessee. That was cool to see. That was awesome. It's pretty unlikely they don't get into the college football playoff, but the fact that Diego Pavia was just kicking gas for that program for those 2 years and breaking plenty of records, that's been up there for a while. That's awesome. So at this point, Diego Pavia is going to get a statue put in. I think New Mexico State should do the same thing for him as well too. He's um he's really changed the face of this program. Even gotten a 5-star QB to flip over to Vanderbilt. Where will we go with that in the future? That's gonna be interesting. Virginia beats Virginia Tech. We were thinking it's gonna be some sort of a trap game or so that could have did Virginia in because Virginia Tech has a good record over them, but no, Virginia was locked in. Chandler Morris was healthy. They took care of business, so they're in the conference championship, for which we will explain that later on. SMU had a chance to take out Cal, traveled all the way down to Cal Berkeley. Unfortunately, they could not get it done. Cal came through. Quarterback Jaron Kiawe Sagapolu Tele did a pretty good job. So now Cal's just got to figure out how they're going to keep him. And if they can, Cal might make something interesting for next season with how open the ACC is. We don't know if Clemson and Florida State will bounce back because they've had their struggles. Decided to put in FIU versus Ham Houston because Keon Jenkins, quarterback, and Kayjon Owens, running back, two of the most dynamic, very underrated, very non-talked about combination of a backfield. They were pretty entertaining to watch. Like even seeing their stats, man, they like that was such a good combination, man. It just kind of sucks that we couldn't have seen more of them. But they are bowl eligible, so I will plan on watching that game to see how this plays out. I'm hoping Kayjon Owens goes to the NFL and just see what his potential is there. FIU, talented players, not quarterback, but skills position, actually had success. If we want to talk about T.Y. Hilton, he was a FIU player. Western Kentucky came up short against Jack State. This was pretty much for the right to play in the CUSA championship. If they could have had a Kennesaw State loss somewhere, I think Western Kentucky would have found their way in. Unfortunately, that's not the case. Jack State goes to the conference championship to face Kennesaw State. That actually took 2 seasons to make the conference championship. So kudos to those boys, which I actually am on. Won in overtime, 48-42 against Liberty. Kennesaw State pretty much dueled it out against Liberty that was trying to get into a bowl, and unfortunately Liberty didn't come up short. So now Kennesaw State plays in the conference championship. And then Penn State and Rutgers. Penn State edges it out against Rutgers 40-36. They go bowling, won the last 3 games after a pretty much god awful run of 6 straight losses. They were able to bounce back, get into a bowl. Um yeah. Yeah. And then Yeah, it's just a lot, man. I mean, with how that week went, I was expecting more chaos, not too much of it, but the ACC suffered the most out of it. Georgia Tech had their opportunity 2 weeks ago. Cal had, not Cal, SMU had their opportunity. Unfortunately, did not come up with that. And then it was between Miami and Pitt, um, to try to have that opportunity of even getting into the playoffs. Pitt had an opportunity of winning and maybe getting into the conference championship. They just could not get it done. Um, but yeah, now we're in the conference championship. We have matchups of Texas Tech against BYU, Indiana versus Ohio State. That's going to be really awesome to watch. One of the best, if not the best game of the weekend. I cannot wait to watch it just to see how Indiana fares against Ohio State. Ohio State felt like they were the best team from start to finish. We'll see if they can close it out in the regular season and the conference championship. As I mentioned before, Jacksonville State against Kennesaw State. Miami versus Western Michigan. I expected Western Michigan to be in, but what the hell? How did Miami, Ohio get in? They lost to Toledo and Ohio, that both actually beat them this earlier this season. But apparently, in the tiebreaker, it came down to the common opponents, and apparently Miami, Ohio leveraged both of them and ended up getting to the conference championship, which kind of makes no sense. I don't understand it. I really don't understand it that the computers have to get involved with this into playing into this scenario. I felt like head to head is really important. If you beat your team, if you beat your opponent and you both tie up with the conference record, then that's where the tiebreaker usually comes in for that one first. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. Apparently, Miami, Ohio just had leveraged over the whole thing despite losing those two. So it's like, what does it matter even playing that team on the schedule if you're not even going to get what you want? And I felt the same way with UNLV and Boise State. I, I'm trying to figure this out. I'm really trying to figure this out. So here it is. Here it is. We can go here since I got this up. So I guess outrightly Boise State won the tiebreaker because they were at the top of the conference anyways. But UNLV, I did not expect it. They were fourth in the standings, but I guess whatever it may have been, the 10-2 record may have leveraged them a little bit as far as overall, so they were able to get in. I would have really thought that maybe New Mexico or San Diego State would have gone in. San Diego State did beat Boise, but I believe Boise did beat New Mexico. I think I don't know if they even played each other. They did beat New Mexico. So that may have leveraged it a little bit. But I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to blame Utah State for this. If you would have beaten Boise State, this wouldn't have been a conversation. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. We had this happen. And now Boise and UNLV, two of the teams that I hate the most, being a UNR guy, it sucks. So now those two get to play each other in the conference championship, but that might be a good thing for UNLV's sake. We'll explain that as well too. Alabama and Georgia, as this weekend comes, they get to play each other once again because Texas A&M failed to beat Texas. Thank you very much for that one. So now Alabama and Georgia gets to play each other again. Alabama has a chance to get into the playoffs if they beat Georgia. Otherwise, if they lose, they might likely be out with those three losses. But this might be where the committee may have to talk about this. I don't mind if Alabama wins because that strengthens Oklahoma's schedule just to being safe and solid without even being mentioned in the conversation. So that works out really well. And then Ole Miss being in the playoffs after Oklahoma played them previously this season, this only strengthens more of Oklahoma's resume of their strength of record. I don't know how the whole thing works, but all I know is strength of schedule means a whole lot. And Oklahoma, second, second worst. Oh my god, and just survived it. But yeah, this should be a great game between Alabama and Georgia. Not really a big fan that game day is going to be there again. Indiana, Ohio State, 1-2. Game of the century. Are you kidding me, people? Apparently, you're in contract with the SEC since they're a part of ESPN. Collusion, whatever. And then we got Troy and James Madison. If James Madison wins, they just gotta hope Virginia loses just so they can get in. That creates a little bit of chaos. But otherwise, if Troy beats James Madison is eliminated. That's pretty much a self-explanatory thing. So now that the CFP rankings came out and everything's been done and taken care of, we want to talk about the scenarios of this. And I like scenarios. At the same time, I like chaos, which again, I like to see it be delivered. So as of right now, we know a Big Ten team's in, and winner between Ohio State and Indiana is going to get the 1 seed. Depending on what happens with the Georgia result, there's a potential chance there's going to be 3 Big Ten teams taking the top 3 spot. There might be even a better chance that Ohio State or Indiana holds the number 2 seed. And then we have Georgia. Doesn't matter. If they win, they're in a good spot. They could get number 2 as well too. If they lose, we'll see where they're placed at. They might still get a bye, they might not. In the loss, most likely not. And then we already know Oregon's in. We'll just see where they're placed in. I don't know if they're going to be able to get a bye. It's a slight chance. It takes Texas Tech loss probably to make it happen. They need a little bit of chaos to get the bye week. Otherwise, home game, no problem. Who wouldn't want to host a home game? And I think Oregon really needs it after that last year where they didn't have a home game, they had a bye, and then just got stomped by Ohio State. So I know they really would need this one. Texas Tech win gets them in, no problem. Even if they lose, they're still in the field. Ole Miss, despite losing Lane Kiffin to LSU, they jumped up one. So we're good. Postseason doesn't matter if the coach is gone, whether the timing is bad or good. They're still in. We'll see how they fare. It all depends on the players' mindsets of it. I've heard a little bit of rumors and stuff about Chambliss, but I think it's just more of a rumor. I think he should be able to play in the playoffs. If I were him, just to get that thing out of the way. But I know he might be trying to get a waiver to play an extra season, which hint, 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 hint. Texas A&M still in. Doesn't matter about the Texas loss, but they got to be even happy that Texas is eliminated. I thought I'd throw that out there just for the fun of it. And then we get to the scenario of things. So right now, I just said there's 7 teams that are most likely in. Right? I just want to be sure. Just want to be sure I'm right, so I won't get it wrong because I feel like I'm gonna miss on someone. Which you know what? This is where we're at. This is what I got set up. Okay, so here we go. Here we go. And then we get into Oklahoma, which they most likely should be safe. But this is why I said just 7 teams because I'm starting to feel like this is not 100% a guarantee. Now, they have like a 99, 96, whatever percent chance of making the college football playoff, which is really high, unless there is some talks of, well, Oklahoma's offense hasn't really been that good. They've been not that consistent. The run game is kind of questionable. The offensive line is just kind of iffy at times. We watch some of their games. It's like cringe kind of reminds me of the Denver Broncos a little bit, which I had this conversation with somebody that's a big time Broncos fan about. It's like, I don't know if I want to watch this game, but if you have to see it, they get a month off. John Mateer will definitely be healthy with that hand. And then it just takes time to where are we at with this offense? What can we do to make adjustments so then they can run a slightly smoother offensive game so this won't be cringe, ugly, and all that stuff to watch. Because even for me, it was cringe and ugly to watch. But the strength of schedule worked. Once they got into November, they haven't lost. They went to Tennessee and Alabama and won those games. Not many can say that, honestly. And then they took care of Mizzou. and then they were able to escape and beat LSU. They beat Michigan, that is ranked. They lost to Ole Miss, that happens to be in the college football playoff. They lost to Texas, that happens to be ranked, and also beat Texas A&M. So thank you, Texas, for doing us a little bit of favor for strengthening our strength of whatever it is. So Oklahoma should be fine, but I'm just interested in seeing how it plays out on Sunday. And yeah, if they don't get in, I'm gonna be very mad. And then we get to the AAC winner between Tulane and North Texas. Whoever wins will get in. Self-explanatory, nothing new, nothing different, unless a meteor just happens to come and crash, which we're not going to have. Knock on wood, not going to happen. So at this point, we have nine. We have nine guaranteed in. And then you have the bubble teams, which I'm glad I have set up. It's not as glamorous as the ESPN ones or the CBS ones or the NBC ones or anything like that. I not even close to it. It's just pretty much stickers on freaking paper and me writing on it pretty nicely, actually. But you have Alabama, you have Notre Dame, you have BYU, and you have Miami. Alabama and BYU could get in with a win. Simple. Not that hard. But then you have Notre Dame and Miami on the outside looking in, and this is going to be the biggest debate of all time. I'll eventually get to that one, but it's going to be huge because Miami got a win off of Notre Dame earlier this season, but Notre Dame has cooked perfectly and have not lost ever since those first two games they've lost. Miami though got off to a hot start when the weather was good, and then once it got a little cold, so did Miami. Lost to Louisville at home and then lost to SMU in November. That's not good. We've had this similar situation happen last year to where Miami was off to a hot start and then they just chilled out right after. It's not good. We don't want that. And I'll get into another little bit of it in just a moment. But then you have Texas, who was eliminated, eliminated. Just eliminate them and just put it on the wall and just call it a season. And then you have Vanderbilt, that's pretty much eliminated too because they lost to Texas in the head-to-head, so that kind of pushes them out. And then we have Virginia. So why is Virginia in the bubble and not over there? Because they got to win their conference championship and they got to face Duke. If they win, they're in. They are the fourth. They are the fourth conference champion. You don't really have to argue much. They might get into the 11th spot. Simple. If they lose to Duke, though, oh boy, oh man, oh, we got some chaos. Oh, I'm gonna love this one, and this is why James Madison and UNLV happens to be there, which is kind of weird, but it does make sense because James Madison only had one loss all season. If they win, then it all depends on the situation. Otherwise, they'll probably go to a big bowl game. UNLV, despite everything, they have a 10-2 record. Um, Looks like the committee's giving them an opportunity. So all they got to do is just beat Boise and then just see the chaos happen. They need a Virginia loss. They need a James Madison loss to even get in. Simple, right? Maybe. So this is where we're at with the bubble right now. This is the situation. So let's move on to what happens if BYU loses. If BYU loses, they're out. So this is what you have here. This is what you have here. Hold on. God, I don't think I set it up right. Hold on. Hold on. I I swear to God, I really had this set up. Okay. Okay. Let's just revert back. And let's start here. Let's say all the favorites won. So this is what you have. You got the top eight. Virginia's in off a win, and then you got an AAC winner, right? And then you got Notre Dame and Miami in. I'm only saying this because with Alabama and BYU losing the conference championship, Alabama suffered their third loss, and BYU it's really hard to say that BYU should still be in this conversation because they lost to Texas Tech twice. I could s- it- I could say they have a they had a decent schedule which they did well, but it's just not enough to be convincing enough for them to be in the 12-team playoff. I'm really sorry, BYU fans. I'm really sorry, and I really supported you guys to get there. But seeing Notre Dame just cook at the right time after those two losses and just finishing off their schedule with 10 straight wins, and then Miami, despite everything, they won their games as they should. They beat out Notre Dame that happens to be ahead of them. I think Notre Dame getting into the field kind of pulls Miami in anyway. And this is something that the committee talked about. Like, even if they're not playing the conference championship, depending on the result, it will shift. So my assumption is Alabama losing, they have the third loss. That's pretty much it for them. BYU losing to Texas Tech twice means they can't handle playing bigger competition. So they'll probably be out. That's just me. I'm not trying to be biased about it. This is just my opinion. The committee may have a different idea of it, but this is where it gets really interesting. So this is what happens when all the favorites win. Now, if I would really say if anybody's the favorite, I would say Duke's the favorite. We need some chaos here. Okay, we move on. So this is where we get to if BYU lost. So by assumption, Alabama wins. They're in. Georgia is still in the field, but we'll see where they're placed at. We still got the eight, including Alabama being in this field, and Virginia also won, so they're in the field. And then you got the AAC champion, right? So now you're left with 11 teams. You have Notre Dame, you have BYU that just lost their second game, and then you got Miami. This becomes a huge debate. I feel like if this happens, this becomes a huge debate because, again, BYU lost to Texas Tech twice. So the question is, can they handle playing in the CFP? Then you got Notre Dame, two losses, Texas A&M that's in the field, and then Miami that's right behind them, not even that far off. They have played strong at the right time. Even when Jeremiah Love got hurt a little bit in the last game, he'll be back. He'll be healthy. This is a full strength team. They look like they're cooking at the right time. And then you got Miami. Miami beat out Notre Dame. They took care of business on some of their schedule, but they had that loss to Louisville at home and SMU on the road. There's questions. It's the same just like last year. Do they deserve to be in the field? And if they do, it comes down to pretty much the head to head because at this point, BYU lost their second game, pretty much pushes them out. So you got the Notre Dame Miami debate, and it becomes huge. I don't have an answer for it. I'm not going to say who's in the field. I would say the team that's hot at the right time should be in the field. But then again, head to head, does head to head matter? And there's my opinion of it. This is something I wanted to mention with UNLV Boise State getting into the field for the conference championship, and then Miami, Ohio somehow getting into the conference championship, despite the fact Toledo and Ohio were ahead of them and lost those matchups, and yet head to head didn't seem to matter. So I feel like head to head, strength of schedule, strength of record, whatever, the scenarios and all that stuff, and how they played through the rest of their season after that matchup, I think a lot's going to be thrown in. And holy crap, man, I feel like this is going to piss a lot of people off. If Miami is out of that field for the second straight season, um, are they more pissed off than Florida State when they got left out because of their quarterback situation? Maybe. Being out twice again over this little debate, it just hurts a little bit. So I can feel for Miami. I can really feel for Miami. But at the same time, I kind of sensed how Miami was going to play. You can check out one of my podcast episodes. I explained about that one. So now we get into the scenario if Alabama lost. So pretty much at this point, you still got the same eight, and BYU wins the game. They beat Texas Tech. Texas Tech is still in the field, but how far do they drop? We'll see. Virginia made it. AAC winner. We don't have to explain it. This one gets a little interesting, and I feel like the branding might play a little part into it because I'm wondering how many people in that committee room are going to look at that Alabama logo while trying to figure out the Notre Dame Miami situation. They might be debate like, and this is me. This is my opinion. I would love to be the fly on the wall for the committee. So this is where we're at, right? We got Alabama, we got Notre Dame, we got Miami on the bubble, trying to figure it out. Alabama lost their third game, albeit they finally lost to Georgia after they beat Georgia earlier this season. And as I kind of mentioned, how do you fare after that matchup going forward, right? If you beat your opponent twice, you're definitely in, no questions. But if you lose to them and you're outside or on the outside looking in, it's really hard to be convincing of trying to get in. It really is. And then you got Notre Dame and Miami. We already talked about this. They're debating head to head, how they fared after they played each other, the schedules they faced, and all that. Did they lose after? Did they have the consistency? Were they ugly? Whatever. But I feel like that committee, in the middle of this conversation, debate, whatever, they're looking at that Alabama logo, and that makes me think: is the branding gonna is the branding gonna overtake the head-to-head debate, because it gets a little frustrating when we're trying to figure things out. Again, this is me because how I felt about the MAC situation and the Mountain West situation. Is the branding going to overcome the Notre Dame Miami argument? And will a three-loss team get into the field? And Alabama has a good strength of record and strength of schedule, to be honest. Like, the teams that they have played, they were able to win it. But then again, here's one little thing that will definitely kind of pull Alabama down. That loss to Florida State. Is Florida State bowling? No. Have they done well ever since beating Alabama? No. This is the second straight season that Florida State has had a bad season, and I cannot believe they extended Norvell's contract, which is kind of stupid. But I feel like if it does come to this case, Alabama might still be dragged out because that Florida State loss on their schedule is going to play a part. And they have not played dominant ever since then. So this is really going to hurt them. But if we have to say it, I feel like branding's going to play a little bit of a part of it. You guys might say, "Oh, no, no, no. Oh, branding has nothing to do with it." When you think of college football, when you think of the SEC, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Yeah, exactly. So we move on. So this is where a little bit of chaos comes in, right? So we still have 8 in the field. But my only little tidbit question is, will Oklahoma be on the bubble too for a conversation? I don't know. But their strength of schedule, strength of record still should play in their favor. They should still be okay. But where will they be seated? If Alabama and BYU both won their conference championship, that's a big question. And we already know about the AAC. I'm not going to explain it again. So, what will happen if, oh my God, Virginia lost? In the middle of the Ohio State Indiana epic game of the century matchup, you have Virginia Duke that also plays at the same time as them. We got our 1, 2, or 3 at the end of the Big Ten championship. They already got crowned. And then we see chaos happen. At the end of the game, Duke beats Virginia. Holy crap, man. Are you kidding me? What happened? Just with everything. Alabama beats Georgia twice to get in. BYU beats Texas Tech to get in. And then Virginia loses to Duke. Holy crap, man. I'm probably gonna hold my breath on Sunday as well, too. This means, and this is gonna hurt. This is gonna hurt if this were happen. Notre Dame and Miami are eliminated. They're done. And then it comes down to James Madison. They get in because they got into the rankings just this Tuesday. So they're the 12th team. And not only that, we have 2 group of 5 teams to make up the 5 conference champions to make the college football playoff. Oh my God, who would have expected this? I would have loved to, because when I played the college football video game, that made me think, is it possible 2 group of 5 teams can make up the 5 conference champions? Yeah, it's possible. this might come to reality. And it's the second year it happens. This would come to reality. This would be great. To me, this would be great. And if anything were to happen to where Oklahoma was left out because of it, I'd be so upset, but I would be so happy at the same time. I'm like, the little guys are finally getting the attention, which means Mac, CUSA, um, um, well, pretty much Max, CUSA. You guys got a chance. There's hope. You can get in. Just win your games. Just play competitive football. Get into the transfer portal and do whatever it takes to get the best players you can find, build it, and just go compete. Win your games. Anything can happen. Pretty much it. All it takes is the Virginia loss and then Alabama BYU to win. That's all it takes. Anything can happen in college football. Holy crap, it took the second year to do it. Oh my God. Now I'm getting pretty excited about it. Can't wait for Friday, man. All right. All right. So what would happen? So what would happen in this jeez. So what would happen if chaos kept going? What if James Madison lost to Troy? Already explained everything. We don't need to go through it. What if James Madison lost? UNLV would somehow get in. I'd be so pissed, man. It's like not only did UNR didn't beat them, Boise State couldn't beat them, but James Madison loses to Troy, and UNLV gets in. I'm like, are you kidding me? Oh my God. Oh, Vegas would turn upside down, dude. Oh, would this give Raiders motivation to go out and beat Denver? Oh my God, we don't want to talk about that. Nobody wants to hear that too. Would that motivate the Raiders beat the Broncos, man? We don't want to go into that conversation, but just imagine if that were to happen. Holy crap, man. Just thinking about it, it just makes me smile a little, well, not a little bit, a lot. I love chaos, dude. I love chaos. And then we get to where what if Virginia and then either Alabama or BYU loses? So this is where it gets interesting where the biggest debate of all time comes in. So we have the eight, don't need to explain. James Madison somehow jumps in if Virginia loses. So that's one. That's one. And then after either Alabama or BYU win their conference championship, and then the AAC again, nothing. Then it becomes the similar debate, but do we just consider Notre Dame or Miami in? I don't know. If BYU loses, this gets hard for them. Alabama loses, this may become even harder. But yeah, not much change. But I'm like James Madison getting in. What the hell, dude? What the hell? Or if they lose, UNLV gets in, and we still have this being part of the debate. I don't know, but this is what I have for this. And anything can happen on conference championship week. Again, this whole season, we haven't had a dominant team to stand out except Ohio State right now. They've been the most consistent. After Texas, they've been the most consistent. Indiana's good, but they had some games to where they could have lost. Oregon had a loss. Could have had another one as well too. Georgia can beat anybody, even in ugly and close games. Still can't beat Alabama, which that could possibly happen. And I believe Alabama's the favorite. I don't know why I said Georgia was the favorite, but you know what? I'm still sticking it because they're the highest ranked anyway. Texas Tech, man. Texas Tech can beat anybody. They have proven it. Their only loss was against Arizona State. Don't know what happened with that one. They just came out ugly, but they still pulled it off though. Um, and then we got Ole Miss. Can't beat Georgia, like Georgia can't beat Alabama. But they still made it in. Lane Kiffin, even though he's with LSU right now, should be thanked for getting Ole Miss to the playoffs. And then we got Texas A&M, can beat everybody. I thought they were very adaptable to any situation, but apparently not against their rival. But will this affect them? I don't know. But losing to Texas, it might have some thoughts. But if you think about Ohio State's situation, they still ran the table and won the conference championship. Oklahoma lost 2 games. Ole Miss, Texas did well to start out this season, and then once John Mateer got hurt, we don't know where it was going to go. But still, Mateer still pulled it off. He still made it through. Defense is the reason. Special teams played a big part into some of the games as well too. But yeah, this is this is going to be one of the probably one of the best conference championships in college football history because we don't know what's going to happen. Again, it, it we just don't know who's dominant outside of Ohio State. I really think Ohio State's going to be the hardest out unless they're like Oregon, most dominant through their season, and then they play an 8 seed, they come out flat, and they get stumped. Who knows? It all depends on who they're matched up with. Um, yeah, I I think that's it. I didn't think I would actually go through it this quick. I really thought it was going to take about an hour, but yeah, this is pretty much it, man. Um, I will be doing a reaction after the college football rankings come out on Sunday. And even if it's in the middle of the NFL game, my Niners are on a bye, so I'm cool with doing this. But this to me, this has been a good season. This has been a good season to watch. This has been a good season to actually attend. Um, I had a fun time. I had a great time. I wish I could have gone to other games, to more games. I wish I could have gone to the Red River Rivalry, but I guess it's a good thing I didn't. I do plan on making it out there next year for it, and John Mateer should be at least 110% more healthy. And then we get to see Arch Manning in year 2 to see how he does it as a starter for Texas, and it might be an epic matchup to pretty much end all matchups in college football, honestly. Um, but yeah, it was an experience. I'm glad I got to do this podcasting, and I'm still plan on doing it until football seasons ends. Who knows what else I'm gonna do with this podcasting? This might be it. Might just go into an off season like I do with my blog, or I might come on and just talk sports or random stuff or life and stuff, which I do kind of want to just to get more practice with the podcast. It's been a bit of a struggle, kind of like riding a bike a little bit with my training goals and stuff because I haven't been able to do this consistently with work, 2 jobs actually. One of them my option to do just to kind of network a little bit. Um, so it was just kind of hard to manage around, but now I kind of found a consistency. I'd rather do this at night than I do just coming home from work because I'm just not in the mood. And when I tried to, I tried hard to. But it's just like what I'm doing right now, just for anybody that's hearing or watching, my excitement, my energy is just there. But I love college football. I love talking about it. I love watching it. Hell, I love attending it because it's just the energy and the vibe of it. And I hope to attend more games next year. Maybe Ole Miss and LSU. Oof. Imagine being around that hostile environment. I've been around environments, but not a hostile one. This would be an exciting experience to go to. But yeah, yeah, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. So, and I need to be more consistent on saying this. Be sure to check out my website, all lower cap, um, lonewolf1225.com. I do my blogs, my power rankings and stuff, my sports stuff. I'm going to do my best to get the top 25 expectations championship week out for Wednesday. And then I got another one for the conference championship previews for Thursday. Hopefully, I can get that out on that day. I know I got to work my second job tomorrow. So it's going to be a bit of a stretch, but I can make it. I can do it. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna have this whole video recording posted on YouTube. I'm starting that, and whenever I try to figure that out, I'll make sure to say my website name. I don't know how to do it with YouTube. Like this is gonna be my first official time doing something like this. But yeah, yeah. Hopefully you all have a great night. If your teams are still in it for the conference championship, good luck to them. Oh, right. Hold on. Hold on. Before we go, the Lane Kiffin thing. Okay, so Lane Kiffin got the job with LSU. Okay, fine and dandy. We a lot of us kind of expect it. But what some of us were kind of worried about, even analysts can say this too, is Lane Kiffin still going to coach the CFP? And after he got hired at LSU, I figured LSU would wait until he's finished with the season, which I mean most college football programs should do when they hire a new coach. But unfortunately, I don't know his last name, but Keith, the AD for Ole Miss, says it's one way or the other. Either you stay with Ole Miss or you leave for LSU immediately after the game's done against Mississippi State. So Lane Kiffin really tried. He really tried to work things out to stay. Unfortunately, he couldn't. Ended up having to leave for LSU sometime after winning against Mississippi State, which is unfortunate. And I can feel for him. In a way, I ran through an AD that did did the same to my bosses, a couple of my coworkers, including me. Wasn't anything sports related or so, but I worked at a gym, and yeah, it did not end well. So I kind of feel for Lane, but I just do not understand because John Summerall and Eric Morris got hired to new teams, and they're still able to coach their games. And John Summerall, Tulane, Eric Morris, North Texas. Both of them playing each other in the conference championship. Whoever wins goes to the playoffs. They're going to coach their season. The video game that I play for college football, I got a new job, and yet I'm still able to play out the college football playoffs. I don't understand why Ole Miss can't do that for Lane. And I think that's bullshit. Everybody can be mad, pissed off at Lane. I don't know what happened behind closed doors. I would have loved to be the fly on the wall. Maybe Marty knows a little bit more than most people do. But I think that's bullshit to let your coach go when he got Ole Miss to their best record pretty much in college football in college program history and getting them to the postseason, which they couldn't even get to the 14 playoff or the national championship when it was no playoff brackets at all. And he finally gets Ole Miss there, and he is not going to be a part of history. That is total bullshit. And I feel for Lane. I feel for the Ole Miss program. I don't like the AD. F him. F him. So it's going to be really interesting when Lane has to take LSU to Ole Miss next season and just whatever the environment is going to be like. Oh my God, it's going to be so uncomfortable. I can feel the emotion for Lane at this point too, just coming back and being hated. Man, but again, LSU has the resources, they have the players, they have the recruits. They got one of the top recruits just like stepping in. So that worked out for him pretty well just right off the bat. So I mean, at this point, we're just going to see how things fare with Ole Miss, and what happens with Lane Kiffin and LSU because expectations has now increased to levels beyond. Can Lane handle it? This is something he couldn't handle with Tennessee, but LSU is much much more of an expectation. So we're going to see how that plays out. But before I go, I wanted to show a video for anybody that's watching. This is the reaction I saw as Lane Kiffin was about to like head for the plane and everything. So I feel for the fans for how funny that is. I feel for them. And this kind of reminds me when Lincoln Riley left Oklahoma. We were on the verge of going to a conference championship if we beat Oklahoma State, right? That's all we had to do. Unfortunately, we came up short against Oklahoma State. And then there was rumors of Lincoln Riley potentially going to LSU, I think, or South Carolina. And Lincoln Riley pretty much stated, "No, I'm not going there." But then at night, or probably the next night or so, ends up slipping out onto an airplane. I don't know if the whole thing's true. That's kind of what I saw through the video. I don't know if it was the same night or the next night or something. Slips out on the plane, takes the job at USC, and just moves on. He probably told his players and some of the coaching staff prior to it, and then took Alex Grinch with him. Thank God, because he's not that great of a DC anyway. Apparently, they don't know how to tackle when he's coaching for them. So I'm glad they moved on. I'm glad they moved on from Grinch. But that pissed me off, man. Not only did he just dip on us like that after we lost to our in-state rival, but he also took Caleb Williams after the bowl game, and then pretty much a quarter of our Oklahoma players to USC. And then others end up transferring out to other schools like Missouri and all those other places. And Tulane as well, too. I know one of them went there. I just was not happy about that. I was so pissed off, man. I was so pissed off I couldn't even think about it. Oklahoma fans were pissed off as well, too. I really didn't know what to think. I really didn't know what to say. I was just pissed. Because how could you do that to us, man? How could you do that to us? Especially when we lost to our rival like that as well, too. Thinking, okay, well, if we come back this season, we'll be better. Nope. Didn't happen. Didn't happen at all. It sucks, man. But this was then. USC's not in the USC didn't go to the Big Ten championship or even the college football playoff. FUSC. And we are on the likely verge of being in the playoffs with Brent Venables since he came in after a lot of shaky situations and stuff. Defense becomes one of the best in the nation, one of the best in the SEC, and then able to get and people can question all they want. I think he just needs this year to get better so he can get better so then he can play his best this next season. But we got John Mateer when Ben Arbuckle came to us. You know, Ben Arbuckle was one thing. Like, I'm not really a fan of the air raid offense, but getting John Mateer, like, to me, that's a win. Like, we really needed a quarterback. He worked out, got us to a 10-2 record. Even with how the offense is, it could have been so much worse than it could have been. So, I'm glad. I'm glad we have. I'm glad we had a better floor than we did. Um, so yeah, just seeing that happen and just seeing what the fans have to go through, I feel for Ole Miss for it. We'll see what happens. We'll see what this program looks like going into 2026 and all that. Okay, now I'm done. So again, just be sure to check out my website, lonewolf1225.com. Again, I do all that stuff. Let me know what you think. If you have your opinions on something, if you have something that you like or not like, just tell me. I love to read you guys' opinions in the comments. I like talking ball. I like learning a little bit more about it from you guys. But have a good night, day, wherever you're at. When you're listening to this, watching this, hope you all have a great time. And just keep the positivity. Unless you're Texas now, just don't. Peace out, guys.